This week, I worked with a leader who had quit. Now, I don't mean he resigned his position. He didn't. He just stopped inhabiting it. And I've been thinking about him all week. And I want to tell you that it's led me to offer this question today. What is it that happens when capable, responsible people slowly lose touch with the feeling that their work actually matters? My search this week for an answer to that question led me back to the ancient story of a man named Nehemiah. Some of you will have heard of him. Nehemiah's calling was to rebuild a sacred wall that had fallen into ruin. And I want to emphasize that it wasn't just construction, it was restorative work for him and for all the people that he led. It was the kind of work that carried meaning far beyond the task itself. And as soon as he begins the job, wouldn't you know, the distractions arrive. Some people begin to criticize him for what he's doing, and others begin to pressure him for the way that he's doing it. And some very reasonably urge him to just step away, saying things like, "This is going to be difficult. Come down and talk with us for a while. Just come down from the wall and let us reason together about what you're doing." Now, in the story, Nehemiah responds with a line that has echoed across centuries. He said to all the people, "I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down." You know, that sentence has stayed with me since the moment I first heard it. And it's not just because of the focus it reflects, it's because of what it reveals about how he saw his life and how he saw his responsibility to that life. Nehemiah believed he was doing a great work, not just respectable or productive or even profitable, great work. And that belief changed everything. Because when you believe you're doing a great work, something shifts inside you. You feel a sense of responsibility. And I don't mean the heavy, joyless kind of responsibility. I mean a grounded awareness that this matters, that how you show up to it matters, that how you perform the work and how you are as you're doing it matters. You see, that's what changes things. And the closest illustration I can find to this is parenting, right? Where it seems like every decision you make as a parent is etched into the final sum of whether or not you got it right, whether you refused to give up, whether you stayed the course and did it with heart. And I have to say, now that I coach leaders every day, it makes me wonder out loud, how many leaders are rolling into their days with diligence and discipline and duty, but never once with the sense that they are doing something that is great work? Now, I don't ask that critically. I'm asking it compassionately, because somewhere along the way, you and I learned how to work hard. But we also may have forgotten how to work as though we were called to the work, whether we were filled with purpose and equipped to do something that was truly great. And remember, I'm not talking about success. I don't mean anything about titles or income or even fame. They're all irrelevant in this context. What I'm talking about is significance, the certainty that we did what we were meant to do to the best of our ability. Nehemiah had that. And it's a thing that I honor and sometimes envy. And you know, the second thing I can't ignore in this story is just how reasonable the voices urging Nehemiah to come down actually sound. Think about it. No one asks him to give up completely. or to accept that something in his calling was wrong or misunderstood. No, they only ask that he pause, that he take a rest, that he come back at a later time. And to my modern ears, they sound so rational. They sound responsible. I would even say they sound wise. But I also know that our world, and especially our news feeds, are filled with voices reminding us to rest, to slow down, to protect our well-being. And I want to say that message really matters. But here's the part I think we sometimes forget to say out loud, that rest isn't the opposite of purpose. It's the fuel that keeps purpose alive and sustainable. One of my favorite philosophers is the ancient Stoic named Epictetus. And he had a very famous quote, speaks directly to this issue. He says, "You will break the bow if you keep it always bent." Can you just picture an archer with a drawn bow and just holding it and holding it and holding it? Yes. And what Epictetus said was true 2,000 years ago, and it is still true today. But it's also true that the purpose of the bow is not to remain relaxed. The purpose is to release the arrow. And the purpose of our lives is never fully realized until the gifts we've been given are in the same way released into the world. When they are aimed, when they're intentional, when they hit the mark, when they bring life. So one of the things I love most about the story is how awareness and action form an inseparable bond. I mean, believing that you are doing a great work is what gets you up and onto the wall, right? But learning to ignore the distraction of other voices is what keeps you on the wall doing the work you know you are meant to do. So in this message today, I want to leave you with something to ponder throughout the week. When was the last time you truly felt that you were doing a great work? Now, I know for some of us, that question leads inward to the deeper work of discovering the purpose for which you were born, the thing that calls to you most clearly, and the thing that you are uniquely gifted to do. I understand that. But as a coach, I also know that for others, that framing may not exactly resonate. And you know what? That's okay, because there's another way in. If you can't find work you love right now, work that you think is great work, you can still find love in the work you do. You can rediscover why it matters. You can reconnect to the people and the causes that it serves. You can realign your time and energy towards the parts of your work that will one day bring you the deepest sense of fulfillment. You see, purpose isn't always about changing what you do. Sometimes purpose is about changing how you do it, and more importantly, why you do it. Now, the end of the story is great. Nehemiah finished the wall, not because he worked harder, but because he remembered he was called to a great work, and because he refused to come down. So my final question in this episode today is, how would it feel to lead with that level of commitment, that you were truly doing a great work, and because it was great, you cannot come down? What I know for sure is that you and I can begin today to find out how that feels. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Execution Insights, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thanks, everyone.